Okay, number 38, find a rectangular equation for the polar equation, r equals 2 sine theta. So what we have to remember is r squared is good because that equals x squared plus y squared. R sine of theta is good because that equals y. So how could we accomplish getting this and this? Multiplying this by r. We're going to stuff that in right in the middle there, and then we're going to multiply that. So we get r squared equals 2r sine theta. R squared is x squared plus y squared. R sine theta is y. So we go on the hunt for that, and it's letter A. Okay, 37 is going to mess with you if you forgot the details about a negative r. Remember, when you have a negative r, it just means polar opposites. So, first thing we're going to do is consider 3, 30 degrees. So we have a spinner, it's 3 units long. We're going to spin at 30 degrees, which means we go to A. Don't be tempted to put A. That is not right because there's a negative here, which means you got to go polar opposites, which is going to take you to letter C. There's it. That's it for number 37. 36. These are rectangular coordinates. Convert it to polar. Polar is r theta. Now, typically there'd be 2 of these, but the exam's going to make your life a little easier and just ask you to find one. So negative 4 square root of 3 is just a fancy way of painting yet another 30, 60, 90. So if this is my short side, that means this has to be 8. That's my r. So I know it's going to be 8, comma, and then how far did I spin my spinner? Well, it's 180 plus 60, which is 240. So really, I just need to figure out which, so I know that's not right, which one of these is 240? Well, pi over 3 is 60. 60 times 4 is 240. It's got to be letter D. Now we got to do the opposite. Now we have polar. So that's my r. That's my theta, which gets me off to a start. So my spinner is 8 units long. Pi over 4 is 45. 3 times 45 is 135. So if I spin it 135, there's 90 plus 45 more. It's right there. But remember, my spinner is 8 units long. And if this is 135, that means this is 45. So I complete my 45, 45, 90, but I got my hypotenuse. So I got to divide that by the square root of 2 to get one of these sides. So I got to get the square root out of there. So I get 8 square root of 2 over 2, which is negative 4 square root of 2, and this is positive 4 square root of 2. So that would be letter C. All right, number 34. Find the angle between the two vectors. This is where I asked you guys, begged you guys to draw a little picture. So 1, negative 3 would be this vector. 2, 5 would be this. Your vectors don't have to be perfect, but the problem's asking for this angle measure. You can see it's going to be greater than 90 if my drawing's halfway accurate, which I think it is. But there's a formula. The formula we're going to use is this. And remember, this is an exam, so things are fuzzy. These do not mean absolute values. This means magnitude. Magnitude is the length of the spinner. So if we concentrate on this one, I know I've made a mess of it, but this is 2, this is 5, so we're going to go a squared plus b squared equals c squared. That's 25 plus 4 is 29. So we know one of them is square root of 29. The other one, this is 1 to the right, down 3, so that's a 1. That's negative 3, so I'm going to go a squared plus b squared equals c squared because we're trying to figure out the length of that spinner. So that's 9 plus 1, which is 10. Take the square root of that, and there it is. Now, what does this mean? Well, it's a big old fat dot, which means dot product, which means we multiply that by that, we get 2. And we multiply that by that, we get negative 15, which is negative 13. So now we got some work to do. So what I'm going to do is take this, remember my algebra 2 rules, and I know I can multiply these together. And I'm going to figure out the square root of 290 just in one click of the button or a couple clicks here. So that's 17.02. I mean, that's really negative 13. I'll just call it 0.2. I don't think we need to be that precise, but so we're going to go negative, whoops, almost screwed that up, negative 13 divided by 17.02, negative 0.763. So I get cosine of my angle is negative 0.763, and this is where I have to go inverse. So second cosine, negative 0.763, enter. I get 139.7. And hopefully we're pretty close. And we have 139.8. Sounds good to me. 33. 3v, so we just got to triple these. 9, 6, minus, double this. That'd be negative 2, 8, just doubling this. So 9 minus a negative 2 would be 11. 6 minus 8 would be negative 2. And there it is, letter A. All right, so this gets a little easier in here. So first thing we should do is multiply vector v by negative 1/2. So I'm going to multiply that by negative 1/2. So that will give me negative 1/2 and then positive 3/2. And it looks like they're introducing decimals here, so maybe I should have made that negative 0.5 comma 1.5. And then with a dot product of w to 5. So this times this, negative 0.5 times 2 would be negative 1, plus 5 times this would be 7.5, so it would be 6.5. Letter B. So number 31, we got to find all the solutions. As you can see, we got a sine squared and a sine. That's the trigger for factoring something out. It's not a trinomial, so don't treat it like one, but we can factor it. And now we need to figure out where this equals 0, and we need to figure out where this equals 0. Let's start with this one. This one should be semi-easy because the opposite side has to be 0 in order for sine to be 0. That happens at 0 degrees, and it happens at 180. Now you can go through all these lists, see 0 and 180, 0 and 180. So we can get rid of this one, get rid of this one. Maybe this is a possibility, but why are there two answers here we need to investigate? Well, if we go negative 1, we get 2 sine of x equals negative 1 divided by 2. So we would get sine of x, or theta, equals negative 1/2. Now remember the little things. All students take calc. Where can sine be negative? Not here, not here. So where could sine be negative 1/2? Well, that'd be if this is a 30-degree angle, that'd be a negative 1, and that's a 2. Or if there's a little 30-degree angle here, there's a negative 1 and a 2. So how far did I spin my spinner? 210. How far did I spin my spinner for this one? 330. So between, I look at letter C and I go, aha, that's 210 and that's 330. So letter C would be my answer for number 31. Number 30 is a little different. You notice there's not cosine squared and there's not another cosine to factor out. So you can't do every problem the same. So I'm just going to isolate this by subtracting the square root of 2 from both sides. 2 cosine x equals negative square root of 2 divided by 2 divided by 2. Cosine of x equals negative square root of 2 over 2. That square root of 2 is screaming out that it's probably a 45, 45, 90. So, first thing I do is I think all students take calc. Where can cosine be negative? Not here and not here. If I gamble on this thought, I'm going to draw a 45, 45, 90 over here and a 45, 45, 90 over here. Label my sides, negative square root of 2. That's my adjacent side right here for both situations. And there's my hypotenuse, hypotenuse. Remember the rule. and a 45, 45, 90, I got to multiply this by the square root of 2 to get that. If it's a 45, 45, 90. So if I multiply that by the square root of 2, do I get 2? Yes, which tells me this is a 45 and that's a 45. How far did I spin my spinner? 135 for that one. How far did I spin my spinner here? 180 plus 45 is 225. So I got to look for these somewhere over here. So letter D matches these in radian form. All right, number 29. This is the problem where it says use the sum or difference identities to evaluate this. A lot of you guys just want to type in sine of 255. Notice there's no decimals here. That's not, anyways, what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to figure out sine of u plus v or sine of u minus v. Somehow you got to pick two new angles to make this work or this work. Most students use addition on this, and they realize, remember that the reference angles you pick need to have 45, 60, or 30. So I'm going to take 45 degrees off of that and just hope things work. And lo and behold, it does. Notice, if I spin my spinner 45, I obviously have a 45-degree reference angle. If I spin my spinner 210, I'm going to have a 30-degree reference angle. So this works really good. So I went ahead and copied down the formula that equals sine of u plus v, which means I got to put stuff where it belongs. So here's my u, here's my v. So I'm going to put a 45 in right here. I'm going to put a 210 right here, 45 and 210 right there. And now we got to figure out what this is. So I got to spin my spinner. I got to have a spinner ready to go as a 45, 45. So it's 1, 1, square root of 2. There's my 45. But a 210 would be over here. So this is my 30, negative 1, negative square root of 3, and 2. So what's sine of 45? Opposite over hypotenuse. You can see it's going to be a little bit of an algebra mess. Cosine of 210 would be adjacent over hypotenuse. Plus, what's cosine of 45? Well, that would be adjacent over hypotenuse. And sine of 210 would just be opposite over hypotenuse, or negative 1/2. All right, so if I multiply all this together, I get negative square root of 3 all over 2 square root of 2. And then plus or minus, plus a negative 1 over 2 square root of 2. So if I have to get, you can see they took the square root out of the denominators. So I'm going to go ahead and add these together. I'm going to get negative square root of 3 minus 1 all over 2 square root of 2. I'm going to get that square root of 2 out of there by multiplying that by the square root of 2 and then that by the square root of 2. So square root of 2 times the square root of 2 is 2 times 2 is 4. And I distribute, so I get negative square root of 6 minus the square root of 2. So the order of this is reversed. As you can see, this matches with letter B. Try to squeeze this one in. It'll be the last one for this recording. So I got cosine, cosine plus, sine, sine. Cosine, cosine plus, sine, sine. Looks like it matches up with cosine of u minus v, which this is my u, this is my v, and this is my u, that's my v. So it's just cosine of the first one, 220 minus 10. So that would be cosine of 210. Now you can see that it's asking you to actually keep going. Now what I'm going to do is spin the spinner to 10, which leaves me with 30, 90. Here's negative 1, 2, negative square root of 3. And cosine would be adjacent over hypotenuse, which is negative square root of 3 over 2, which is this.